I told myself I was never gonna make a serious video about Harvard, but here we are. Hello, my name is Tanya. If you haven't noticed yet, I will be attending Harvard University in the fall because my application process was a little different as well. I wanted to give people an insight on how to apply to Harvard when you're undocumented or have Daca. I am a Daca recipient. Daca is Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals. But basically, I get to remain in this country because I was brought here at a very young age and because I am a student. I've lived here basically my whole life. So I get a work permit, I get a social security number, and yes, just like basic stuff like that. I still can't vote or anything, and there's a lot of college policies that are different for DACA students versus like regular US citizens and residents. But I am going to talk about how to apply to Harvard in general, but also with some advice if you're a DACA or undocumented student who is trying to go to Harvard or to a lot of competitive colleges and universities. I hope my perspective helps. So, yeah. DACA and undocumented students are still considered international students. However, the international and domestic student application is basically the same thing. I did mine through Common App. I'd really recommend you use Common App or I think it's the Universal College application. I don't know. I didn't do that one, but Common App is going to be the most common and it has some of the most universities, and it's going to be a lot better than having to do individual applications for each college. That's that. The application is basically the same. And I'm just going to talk about how I chose Harvard. As a DACA student, I have some limitations as to where I can apply and can't apply. I live in Georgia. Georgia is very strict on where DACA and undocumented students can and can't apply. So I was limited. I couldn't go to a lot of state schools. So I needed to look for a school that I could apply to that gave really good financial aid to DACA students. So it had to be a school that whose financial aid didn't come primarily from the government. And what I was looking for just in general was a college that had the programs that I wanted to study and had really good programs in that. I wanted it to be up north, especially like on the East Coast, because I really like that area. I like colder places in the South. And I wanted somewhere that had a really good study abroad program. Because traveling is really important to me. As a DACA student, I am allowed to travel for school purposes. So a good study abroad program was essential for me. I could only apply to I couldn't apply to some public universities, but if I wanted it to be at the point where I could get a lot of financial aid because I am a low income student, I am on free and reduced lunch, then I needed to go to a public university because most of their financial aid comes from private donations in the institution themselves versus public universities. Basically, most if not all of their endowment or like their ability to give financial aid comes from the government, and the government doesn't want to give me any money. It is what it is. Just off the top, all the Ivies have really large endowments, which means they have really great financial aid. Most of the time, if you're a low-income student, it's going to be a lot cheaper for you to attend institutions such as an Ivy League school versus your state school. Harvard has great financial aid. All the Ivies have great financial aid. More competitive schools have really great financial aid. Those kinds of schools meet 100% of your needs. So if you're a low-income student, public universities sometimes will be cheaper for you. Harvard meets 100% of your financial need. None of it is through loans. Also, Harvard doesn't give like merit-based scholarships. All their scholarships are need-based. Basically, the poorer you are, the more money you're going to get from Harvard because they really want you to be able to afford their education. Number one, Harvard was a public university. It had a huge, an astronomical endowment to give me money. They had the programs I wanted to study. Harvard is in Cambridge, Massachusetts, basically Boston. I love Boston so much. I love Cambridge so much. I love the entire state of Massachusetts, and I am so happy that I can go there. Anyway, it was a great location because it was in the city and it was up north. That's all I needed, really. Harvard has amazing study abroad options. They have a lot of connections with different universities abroad, and their financial aid, like whatever financial aid you get from the school, it follows you to your study abroad. So I could basically almost study for I am actually like full need-based scholarship, so I'm not paying anything to go to Harvard, which is great because I am that poor. So that's how I chose Harvard specific. I did consider applying to other Ivy Leagues. The reason I didn't end up applying to these Ivy Leagues is because they just weren't a really good fit for me. Harvard and Columbia were the only ones like I've truly connected with when I visited campus. I went on a college tour with my parents like the summer before I applied, so the summer after my junior year, and honestly Harvard and Columbia were the only ones that like I kind of connected with. Not that the other Ivies are great schools, but if you're someone who's considering applying to all 8 Ivies, first of all, the people that usually apply to all 8 Ivies, because there are a few that I know that did, especially like on the Harvard like groups chat and whatnot, they apply to all 8 Ivies. There's even one kid that got into all 8 that I know of. I know there's more. People that usually apply to all 8 Ivies is because they're looking for specific amount of rigor in the academic programs, or they just identify really well and connect with all 8 of the Ivy League schools. And some people just apply to all 8 Ivies just because they're the Ivies, and I think that's a really bad reason to apply to a school, just because of its status, I guess. If you do, so don't apply to all 8 Ivies because they're the Ivies, because each one is so different. The only thing that the Ivies have in common are rigorous academic programs, a low acceptance rate, and a general area of where they're all located. So for example, Brown is not in a very big city. It's in Rhode Island, right? And Yale is in New Haven, which is not as big of a city as New York City, where Columbia is. I don't recommend applying to all 8 Ivies just because, unless academic programs are your number one, still consider other factors, because applying to all 8 Ivies is a hard process. And I would recommend only applying to Ivies and schools that you have a good connection with, and don't just look at status when applying to schools. So now we're moving on to testing. I'm not gonna say it like on in the video just because it would take a long time, but all my SAT scores, my SAT subject scores, and my AP scores are just going to be listed down below, so I don't have to go through them. But I did take the SAT. I took the old SAT. I took it twice. The reason I only took it twice is because I couldn't afford to take it at all, basically. The 2 times that I did take the SAT, I used a lovely, amazing thing called a fee waiver. Like I said, I am on free and reduced lunch, so that entitled me to 2 fee waivers for the SAT. If you're on free and reduced lunch, you get 2 fee waivers for the SAT/ACT and 2 fee waivers for subject test for the SAT if you choose to take them. So that's the reason I took the SAT only 2 times. If I could have taken it more, I would have. So definitely take advantage of those fee waivers if you can. I also took subject tests. I took 4 of them. They will be listed down below. The reason I took them is because I was really good at math. I speak Spanish, and I was really good at French, so I wanted them to see that, and I took those tests and I sent them to them. I think I sent them my Math 2 score. I sent them my Spanish test, my French test, and my Math 2 score, I believe. Because Harvard does prefer to see Math 2, but if you know you're going to bomb Math 2, just take Math 1 and do really good on Math 1 is my recommendation for that. In terms of AP tests, I did not get 5s on all my AP tests. I didn't even get 4s on all my AP tests. Like, I got 3s, 4s, and 5s. I was able to pass all my AP tests, which is good, and you should pass them, but by no means did I get 5s on all my tests. So yeah, in terms of taking SAT versus ACT, I took SAT because ACT just didn't appeal to me. That was just my thing. I always knew I was going to do better on SAT. And some people take both. The people that I talked to preferred SAT, but other people preferred ACT. So I would say if you're more science, math inclined, take ACT. If you're more reading inclined, and writing inclined, take the SAT. In terms of preparation for SAT, I did not take any SAT prep course. There are a few available, and if you are on free and reduced lunch, you could take some for a reduced price or even for free. I know one of my friends did that. I did not do that because I actually got a little bit lazy. So what I did, I bought SAT books, both for my subject test and for the regular one. I bought them online from Amazon, and I just studied those for both the tests. That's what I did. I never took an SAT prep course. So, I mean, they're not necessary. If you're more of a self-learner, I would say just get some prep books and don't do SAT prep course. But if you do need, like, a sit-down classroom for someone to, like, help you with it and walk you through and teach it to you, definitely do an SAT prep course, look to see if you qualify for any scholarships for a prep course, because those are available. For classes and grades, definitely take AP classes, honors classes, but you don't have to make your schedule all honors and AP classes. My freshman year, I took no AP classes. I have a few friends that, because my school did offer some AP classes for freshmen, I did not take that class. It was only one class, but I didn't take it. I just didn't feel the need to. And in my freshman year, I wasn't even considering Harvard as a school. I didn't really start considering Harvard seriously until my junior and senior year. I did keep my grades up, like, even though, because my freshman year I wasn't even sure if I wanted to go to college, but I was still keeping my grades up and I was still taking like honors classes, and that's just because I liked learning and I liked school. So I did keep my grades up. I did stay in rigorous classes. So my freshman year I didn't take any APs, but I did take honors classes. Not all my classes were honors classes. So I would say it was 50% honors classes and 50% like on level or just general classes my freshman year. My sophomore year, I only took one AP class, that was AP World History. I took a few other honors classes like honors chemistry, honors lit, and then I think I maybe had one on level class. Sophomore year, I did have a lot more rigorous classes. My junior year, I took 2 AP classes, and then those were the only classes that were rigorous. I have 6 classes in a day. I took 2 AP classes, and then the other 4 classes were general ed / on level classes. And then my senior year, all of my classes except 2 were AP. I took orchestra all 4 years because I liked playing the violin. By no means am I good at it. Like, I can play, but I'm not like I was never an all-state. I was never in any private orchestra. But being in an extracurricular such as orchestra all 4 years really helps. You can put it on your application, and it's really good because it just shows commitment to something that you really like. I took French all 4 years of high school, so those 2 things really showed that I was committed to this. The reason I took those classes all 4 years was because I liked them, and I took them at higher levels. I took honors French and AP French like all 4 years. I took the most rigorous like French classes all 4 years because I really liked it and I was really good at it. And then I took orchestra all 4 years because I liked playing my violin. I just really liked the class, so I took it all 4 years, and that just shows commitment. It shows that you're really interested in something. It shows that you can commit to something for 4 years. In terms of math classes, I only took 3 years of math out of my 4. That's because I took an accelerated advanced course in math. So the way my credits worked out, I got one of my math credits while I was still in middle school, my 8th grade, and so I only had to take 3 classes in high school. And I could have taken math all 4 years, but I didn't want to. And that being said, I did not take calculus in high school. I have never done calculus. I don't know calculus. And the thing is, I know I'm going to have to take calculus in school, so that probably wasn't too smart, but I didn't take calculus. If there's a myth that if you don't take calculus, you're not going to get into an Ivy League, that's not true. Advice on calculus and taking a lot of math: if you're wanting to go into engineering or anything math heavy, definitely take it, because then you probably will need it for your admissions. If you're not, you can get away without taking calculus. Now we're going to talk about extracurriculars. If you're going to do leadership, I would say it's more about quality versus quantity, with clubs as well. In terms of volunteering, it's easy because if you're involved in clubs such as like NHS, Beta Club, Key Club, like you already have to do hours for that, so you can always put that on your application. And I would advise you guys to make an activities resume. You're probably gonna have to make one anyway, so if you don't work, do an activities resume where you just do a resume of your activity. Especially if you're a Daca student. If you're an undocumented student, you can't really work, so if you put that, or a lot of times you don't have transportation, like I get that, so you can't be involved, but taking care of siblings, I put that on my application. I have 2 siblings that I had to watch when both my parents were at work. So if you're a Daca student, undocumented student, low income student who can't really be involved in a lot of clubs, household things, like if you're watching your 15-year-old and you've been watching your siblings since you were like 12 up until you were 18, that's an extracurricular activity. They really do like to see that. That counts. Anything you do counts. And then just the last thing, these are like my tips specifically for DACA students. Harvard will give you so much financial aid. Even if you're a DACA undocumented student, they're going to give you the best financial aid ever. In terms of applying for financial aid, because a lot of DACA and undocumented students are low income, as I am, and they're first generation, as I am. Financial aid wise, I didn't do FAFSA for Harvard or any college because I'm DACA, and because they were private institutions, they have the CSS. So you have to do the CSS profile, which is basically just FAFSA on steroids, is what I've heard people call it. Well, you have to do CSS, but they did, because I did CSS and because they are private institutions and I wasn't going to get any federal aid anyway, I didn't have to do FAFSA. A few of them recommended that I did, but they didn't require me to, and I wasn't about to do that. Don't make it hard on yourself. So for Harvard, I only did CSS. I didn't have to do FAFSA. If you have any questions and you're a DACA student, if you're a first gen student, if you're a low income student, if you're an undocumented student, and you have a question and you want to ask me, go to my Twitter, my Instagram, or I think you can do YouTube DMs now. I don't really know. Send me a message. I'll be more than happy to answer any questions that you have. But also, email the Office of International Students, email the admissions office at Harvard, but also feel free to ask me in the comments, in a DM on my Instagram, on my Twitter, on here. All my social medias are down below. So if you want to DM me and ask me some questions, that'd be great. Also, if you're not a DACA student or a non-documented student first gen, or you're just curious about Harvard, leave a comment, DM me. I might do a Q&A later. I might just reply to the comments. I don't really know yet. I do have another video, another Harvard-related video, that I'll link somewhere. I'll link it in the description and I'll put it up on the screen. Subscribe for more. I'm also gonna leave a link down below or somewhere on the screen to John's channel, John Fish. He has a lot more Harvard videos, and he has like Q&As, and he has like how he got in and like some advice. So he has more videos that are probably going to be more helpful to people. He also has a video specifically like on how recruitment works for Ivies. So if you guys want to check those out, I'll just leave that down below. Ooh, also, just as a side note, I've also included the admissions website in the description. I've also included the international student admissions website down below, and a lot of also their policy towards DACA and undocumented students is linked down below, as well as some other resources such as some scholarships and some general tips and blogs where you can get information on applying to college for DACA students. So that's all down below.